Welcome back to One on One, New York's longest running sports call-in show. Lou Orlando, Annabelle Watson. It's an absolute pleasure to introduce one of our close friends, Samantha Bohrer, WFUV alum, founded All In, which is our women's sports podcast. And since she's graduated, she has gone on to great success and in-arena host for PWHL New York, the Bridgeport Islanders. And most recently, you got the chance to be the in-arena host during the PWHL Championship in Boston, Game 3, and the ultimate Game 5. So I guess first and foremost, congrats on your amazing success of late, and thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm so honored to be back with two of my closest friends and to be back on one-on-one. So it's more than I could ask for to be here. I'm so excited.
Well, we're excited to dive into the PWHL with you, and I want to start with this one because I do think it's funny when you look at the NHL and how long they've been trying to get Connor McDavid into the Stanley Cup. Probably when you look at this inaugural season for the PWHL and Taylor Heisey, who's their bona
Hmm.
fide star, first overall pick. Not only does she get to the championship, once she get there, she goes absolutely crazy. 13 points, 5 goals, or 8 points, 5 goals in 10 games, and she wins the Alana Kloss playoff MVP. What do you think the significance is of their headline or their star having that performance on the big stage?
I think it shows for a fact that this is serious. This is not a joke because, if that headline happened, let's say, Connor Bedard went on to win Stanley Cup MVP this year, it would be like, man, this league knows what it's doing, bona fide. And I think that's really what it says here is it says, man, this league knows what it's doing. And first of all, congratulations to Taylor Heisey. She is out of Minnesota, a monster on the ice. Oh my God. Phenomenal play. Well, I'm sad it didn't work out in Boston's favor. Still, what an incredible series. But I think it's so significant to say this is the player that we've backed as the first overall pick in history. And then she goes on to be the first ever MVP. It's just literally, you couldn't write that story any better. And it's just so phenomenal that it happened for her and for Kendall Coyne Schofield, who is a mother who put her baby in the Walter Cup. I mean, it's just such a phenomenal end to this season.
Absolutely. And you mentioned Kendall Coyne Schofield. This is someone who's competed with men at the NHL All-Star game. She's a three-time Olympian. She's Minnesota's captain, and she was the first member of the team to hoist the Walter Cup. And then she put her son in the cup, which
Yeah.
was super cute. But she's someone who's really helped grow this sport and form the PWHL. So how important are trailblazers like her as this league starts to expand?
They're so important. I think that this inaugural season, all in all, was a phenomenal success. I mean, hundreds of thousands of fans coming to games, watching online, watching internationally, people flying in from out of state to watch their favorite PWHL team because their state doesn't have one yet. I think that people like her are quite literally the reason this league exists. I mean, she is the one who reached out to Billie Jean King and Alana Kloss 5 years ago. They talked about how there should be more for this league, more. The PHF obviously existed and was its own entity in itself and was powerful enough, but she reached out to Billie Jean King and to Alana Kloss, and they talked. And, she's one of, like you said, the trailblazers in this league. And people like her are so important to make sure that the momentum doesn't stop. But it's also just so satisfying to see these people who are women, who are mothers, who are all of these things hoisting this gorgeous championship trophy in its first season. And I mean, trailblazers like her having the support of people like Billie Jean King as well, who was a trailblazer, as we know, in tennis, in the battle of the sexes, showing such support for this league in its inaugural season is huge. And going forward, I think it's going to be just as important to, keep up the momentum. But those people are the reason why I only think this league will continue to gain momentum as the seasons go on and as it expands.
I wanted to jump off what you said about the fan support watching on TV, some of the New York games and some of the championship games. Looks like the presence and the atmosphere is pretty good. But again, as someone that's there firsthand for the New York games, for those championship games in Boston, what was that presence? What was that atmosphere like from the fans? Because it feels like they're building a pretty good foundation here.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was remarkable. There are fans that became well known throughout the league, throughout the country, just by coming to these games. And it is somewhat of a family, it's like people see you and it's like we're all here for the same reason. Everyone is like, I remember the first New York game we had at Total Mortgage Arena. It was their first home game. They had played Toronto in Toronto and won. This is their first game in the States at home at Total Mortgage, and I was hosting. And it was just the entire day, the energy of the staff and then the fans as soon as they came in. It was just this overwhelming feeling of community and of pride. And that's what it remained through all of those games, is it's everyone's here because they want to be here and because they're so excited for this event. And that finals atmosphere, man, I mean, it was just ridiculous. Literally sold out moments after game 4, just completely sold out the arena for game 5, had to put standing room only in the arena, over capacity, standing room only, the entire concourse lined with fans standing just because they wanted to be there to see the Walter Cup for the first time and to see it hoisted by whomever it would have been. And it was just the most incredible atmosphere. It was so loud. It was phenomenal. I mean, over 6,000 people there who spent their hard-earned money to come watch this ending to the inaugural season. So the fan support was remarkable this season, and the atmospheres were loud and crazy, and those fans were passionate, and man, did I love it.
Yeah, something I think that's really impressive about the PWHL is that you have all these fans rallying around these teams, even though they don't really have names or logos, they just represent the city. But as far as that, are you excited for branding to come around next year, for the nicknames to come out? That's something super fun and creative, in my opinion. So I'm sure you're super thrilled.
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm sure you might have seen online some rumors about the New York ones, or at least fans rallying for certain names. And a lot of New York fans really want the team to become the Pizza Rats, which is hilarious. And I've actually seen people with custom made Pizza Rats jerseys with the names of the players from PWHL New York on the back, which maybe, put in the carriage before the horse, but like I love the support and the passion. I am so excited for these names. It was said on the broadcast for game 5 that nicknames and logos will be dropping in August. So I'm hoping that is true, and I'm so excited to see what it is. There have been a few rumors of things they could be, but I honestly kind of like that they didn't rush into naming the teams this year. I like that they kept it as the cities, because I think it also gave the fan bases a chance then to just connect. And it was just the whole city being there, not for the team, not for this certain franchise. It was the city of Boston and women's hockey. It was, the state and New York City together. It was Toronto. So I think that that was also really cool. And I like that it made it kind of more like widespread as opposed to just this kind of singular franchise associated with an image.
Now, I like this first year starting with 6 teams. I thought that was really cool to mirror the NHL and the original 6. Obviously, as you look towards the future, the idea is eventually they're going to expand into new cities, more teams. I was told by our mutual friend Jack Warner, who's a Rangers beat reporter, he said you have to ask Sam her ideas on which cities she wants to see them get expanded. And she's going to have a great answer for you. So I'll throw this to you. What are cities, what are places that you are eyeing for this league to expand into?
Okay. My tops of I have a few, and I don't know how long it'll take, but in my ideal
As long
world,
as you need.
take as long as it needs. Okay. In my ideal world, league expands to Chicago. Chicago is a town, obviously huge sports city. They love their WNBA there. They really do. Chicago, phenomenal hockey town. I think it should hit Chicago. Vegas. We all know my feelings on the Vegas Golden Knights. However, if you listen to 5 on 3, however, I think putting that team, like a PWHL team in Vegas, the game presentation, the jerseys, the opportunities, the connection with the city, that city loves sports. I mean, I know that we've only recently been introducing teams there, but they sell really well and it's really exciting, and it makes it an attraction and it makes it an event. And I think that would be huge for the game and really fun for those players, but also it'd be awesome to just have a team in Vegas. I think Detroit definitely needs a PWHL team. Pittsburgh needs a PWHL team. And I'm going to say like LA. I would put a team out west. I would love a team in Denver, but I think that might take a little longer. But yeah, those are kind of my like top five. Did I list five? I don't know.
What?
Ish. Those are my top places that I think I'm hoping the league really expands to, because I think all those markets are awesome and there's such potential there for support. Not to mention in Vegas. I mean, talk about it, WNBA champions. They love their women's sports there. So I say put the PWHL in Vegas.
Not a bad idea, honestly. But as this league expands, you're going to see a lot of the rule differences from the NHL. You have the 3-2-1-0 point system, the shorthanded goal power play. So there's a lot of talk for these rules in the NHL. You got to see a full season of these rules in action as an arena host. So just curious what you thought about these rule differences in comparison to the NHL.
Yeah, I know we've talked about the 3-2-1-0 rule a lot on 5-on-3 in how it would change the postseason. And I think you saw that for a fact with the PWHL in their postseason, not to mention the way they structure their postseason. I actually really like, which, if you don't know, it's once a team is eliminated from playoff contention, to avoid tanking, it is a point system awarded afterwards for how many wins you get after you're officially mathematically eliminated from playoff contention to get the first overall pick. So it's not last in the league. It's who had the most of these special points for winning or overtime wins after they were mathematically eliminated from playoff contention. And I think it keeps the entire league competitive all the way to the last game, because we've seen it in the NHL where there are teams that are clearly just kind of throwing things away. They're playing people that it's like, no, we don't really know. Like, this is all minor league coming up. Like, this is essentially like practice with an audience for us, if we're going to be honest. I think not doing that, and I think having to fight for that number one draft spot instead of tanking for it, is awesome. I think that the 3-2-1-0 rule, I really enjoy, because I think it is a little more fair, because we see the way that in the NHL, the standings for playoffs would change dramatically if they had that rule. And I think it kind of establishes who was more dominant, regulation, overtime, all of that, and puts literally a points assignment behind it. I love the jailbreak rule also, which, like, I love the jailbreak rule. And Lou, you're nodding your head too.
So
Like,
good. It's great.
it's so good. It's so fun. If a team scores shorthanded, it's obviously amazing no matter what. And then to say, and womp womp, power play's over. So fun. And literally, we were in Boston and there was a penalty. The entire arena starts chanting jailbreak. It's just, I mean, it's so fun because you see it happen live, and which I didn't get to see in Boston, unfortunately, but you see it happen live. And it's just, that's Catford. The other team is so like almost deflated after, which is very sad when it's your own team too. But man, is it fun. Man, is it so fun. And then it almost feels like it's worthwhile to do that, because if you're still on the penalty kill, I mean, what is, like, the other team can still score. So I love it personally. I love the rule differences. They make it a lot more fun. And I think it gives it its own identity.
Well, I think it helped raise intrigue in the league when you like, especially this year. I mean, we talked about them 5-3 all year with the Islanders and how many overtime losses they had, and they sneak into the playoffs, and then the lottery thing as well. Like, and then I'd say the jailbreak. These are all rules that NHL fans have been either clamoring for, or really intrigued to see how would this play out if we implemented it. For the PWHL to take this, I would say, bolder, aggressive leaf and put that into their league, I think probably helped raise interest from the NHL fans into this league. Another thing that I thought probably brought interest over from NHL fans, I think there were a lot of big questions about what's the physicality going to be like in this league. And I think a lot of people were pleasantly surprised. This was a very physical season. It was a very physical league. I'd like to get your take on that.
I love it. I mean, I don't know if I'm like supposed to say that or not, but I loved it. I think that has been a big barrier for NHL fans to get into professional women's hockey in the past, is that a big reason we all love hockey, it's the fights, it's the physicality, it's what separates hockey from so many other sports in that way, is, you're allowed to hit each other in that way. You're almost encouraged. You have people whose literal title is to be the enforcer, right? And I think that that's something that's been separated because in every other women's league, like you said, Lou, they were not allowed to do that. They were not allowed to do purposeful contact or whatever the actual term is. And man, did it make it so much more fun. Because when you see, Emma Woods lay someone out, it is just the most fun because you sit there and everyone goes, ooh, just like in the Garden when Matt Rempe does it, And it's like, it adds that energy. It also helps turn the momentum of the game. It allows the teams to kind of spice themselves up beyond just having to play smart because these women are such genius players. They're always thinking 3 steps ahead, but it allows them to also implement that physicality. I think it's so fun. I think, it is also kind of telling though. Sarah Nurse did an interview where they asked her why like the women didn't hit even if they weren't allowed to in games before. And she said, they're like, why didn't you guys fight each other? Like you didn't have the full face guards. Why? And she goes, because we didn't have dental insurance. It's because in the past leagues, none of these leagues had the physical, like the financial capabilities to support the women in the way that the PWHL does. She literally would say, we didn't fight each other because we didn't have dental insurance. Like we'd have to pay for that if we got a tooth knocked out in a fight. And now they have the support. And man, when they brawl, it is fun. Obviously, they don't let them do it to the extent of the NHL, but the physicality, I think, is huge. I think it has been such a big draw for NHL fans. And it's been just so awesome for the players to get to release that also and not have to act, all put together all the time and restrain themselves. You get to let those feelings out on the ice, and it's really fun to watch.
Absolutely. And, you mentioned the financial support that the PWHL has finally gotten. And of course, we've seen the tremendous attendance of PWHL games. And I think that's just one example of the growth of women's sports in the last year. And as someone who was there for the start of All In with you, I know both of us are very passionate about women's sports. So, what does this huge rise in interest mean to you as someone who has really witnessed it?
It like it's so hard to put into words almost because we as women in the sports world, even if I'm not an athlete, you walk into these rooms and it's just dominated by men. And you walk into press conferences and you walk into locker rooms and it's dominated by men. Like I'll never forget, I started working as a beat reporter my senior year for the Rangers. And you walk in the locker room and it's me and Molly Walker, the only 2 women in a locker room of men. And even prior to that, women weren't allowed in the locker rooms a long time ago because, and we've talked about this on All In, they didn't allow women in the locker rooms. And so to walk into a space like the PWHL, and I remember first day walk into New York, most all of the head execs are female, the players are there. It was just the most empowering feeling to say, we are all here, we all believe in this, and we are all going to do our absolute best to make sure that this succeeds. And so it just means the world to see women's sports having this much support and gaining this much traction and to be mainstream enough to make it on Bar Down, to make it on Sports Center, to make it on ESPN, to have these highlight clips featured on the Sports Center top 10 of the night. It's amazing. And it fills me with so much pride. And I mean, like you said, we were there for the beginning of All In, and it's just so much fun to talk about these things. And now to have it be taken so seriously. And I don't want to say that women's hockey wasn't taken seriously before, but I think that this league has had the most support. I mean, it's everything. And to have the backing of people like Billie Jean King and the Walters is remarkable. I was so honored, personal brag, but at the last game after Billie Jean King came off the ice after presenting the Walter Trophy, I shook her hand and I said, thank you so much for being here. And she said, no, thank you so much for being here. Your support means everything to us. And I was in tears, but I was like, thank you, Billie Jean King. I love you so much. But it means the world to have the support. So I think that for women's sports, it's huge and it's so much fun. And it's only proving that like they're here to stay. They can play with the big dogs, and it's just as great as the men's, and it's its own entity too.
Well, Samantha, congratulations on all your incredible work this year. I know we're all so proud of you at the station. Thank you for taking the time to talk some PWHL with us.
I'm so happy to have been here. Thank you guys for having me. Have a great rest of one-on-one.
Minnesota wins the championship in the first season of the PWHL. Plenty more to come in future years, but that will do it for our interview. Thank you again to Samantha Bohrer. We'll be right back with more one-on-one.